Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a complex, high-stakes, global issue and breaking it all down so you can actually understand the moving parts. Right now, as we speak, there's this massive, quiet race happening in the background of our everyday lives. It's a high-stakes, multiplayer global competition to secure the critical minerals that quite literally power our modern world. From the EV sitting in your driveway, to the wind turbines powering our cities, all the way to the advanced defense systems protecting nations, it all relies on a very specific set of materials, and the geopolitical chessboard is rapidly shifting to secure them. It really all boils down to one fundamental question: who controls the future of technology? For decades, the answer to that has been pretty simple and, frankly, a bit concerning for global supply chains. We've been dealing with a situation of overwhelming dominance by just one nation over the entire mine-to-magnet supply chain. China has held a tight grip on both the extraction and, crucially, the really complex processing of these materials. But, as we're going to see today, the rest of the world is making unprecedented, multi-billion-dollar moves to completely change that balance of power.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We're covering 1. The rare earth monopoly. 2. A $2.8 billion countermove. 3. The Australia-Japan Pact. 4. Vietnam, the sleeping giant. 5. China's tactical pause. And 6. The global supply chain. Let's get right into it.
Starting with Section 1, the rare earth monopoly. Let's ground the science really quick. Look, before we can understand the billions of dollars flying across borders, we kind of need to understand the actual dirt. When we talk about rare earths in the context of this massive geopolitical race, we're really zeroing in on 4 key magnetic elements: neodymium and praseodymium. Those are your light rare earths, and dysprosium and terbium, which are the incredibly scarce heavy rare earths. So why do they matter? Because when you combine them, you get the absolute most powerful permanent magnets on Earth. Think of these 4 elements as the non-negotiable secret sauce for next-gen technology. They are absolutely essential for EV traction motors, high-efficiency wind turbines, robotics, and advanced aerospace and defense systems. Simply put, if you can't secure these 4, you just cannot build the future. Moving to Section 2, a $2.8 billion countermove. We're looking at securing heavy rare earths right in the Americas. To secure these exact elements, the whole chessboard is moving. $2.8 billion. That is the massive acquisition price USA Rare Earths is paying to scoop up Serra Verde, a mining group down in Brazil. And honestly, this is a monumental deal because Serra Verde's Pela Ema mine is literally the only scaled producer outside of Asia that is capable of supplying all 4 of those magnetic rare earths we just talked about. By snapping this up, USA Rare Earths is instantly creating a fully integrated, Western-aligned global leader that operates entirely outside of the traditional Asian supply loop. Now, what's super interesting here is the financial safety net they baked into this deal. Serra Verde secured a 15-year, 100% offtake agreement with a U.S. government-backed special purpose vehicle. The guaranteed price floors here are fascinating. We're talking neodymium and praseodymium at $110 a kilo, dysprosium at $575, and terbium at over $2,000. Now, these floors are actually set well below current non-China spot prices, but what they do is absolutely vital. They guarantee cash flow, and they de-risk the massive capital needed to run these mines, effectively protecting the entire operation from sudden market price drops orchestrated by dominant players. And it gets even more strategic. The U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, the DFC, stepped in with a $565 million financing package. This sovereign-backed financing does something huge. It gives Washington an option for a minority equity stake, sure, but more importantly, it allows Serra Verde to effectively sever its existing long-term Chinese offtake agreements by 2026. This isn't just funding. This is a deliberate, geopolitical decoupling of an operational mine from Chinese control. Which brings us to Section 3, the Australia-Japan Pact. Let's talk about allied strategic coordination. Shifting our focus over to the Indo-Pacific, just think about the sheer scale of allied capital being deployed here. Australia and Japan are dramatically leveling up their economic security relationship. Australia is committing up to 1.3 billion Australian dollars through its critical minerals facility and export finance mechanisms. Meanwhile, Japan, through its state-backed JOGMEC, is injecting around 370 million Australian dollars. This is a highly coordinated, mutual commitment by 2 massive industrial powerhouses to address urgent supply chain vulnerabilities. They've realized they just can't rely on a single source for their advanced manufacturing and energy transitions anymore. And they are building a really comprehensive network. Australia and Japan have rapidly identified a whole slate of joint strategic projects. It's not just about rare earths, although Linus is absolutely a flagship there. They are funding Alcoa for gallium recovery, Magnum for high-purity magnesium, Tivan for fluorite, RZ Resources for mineral sands, and Ardea for nickel. This brilliantly illustrates the breadth of what these allies are trying to do. They are systematically building parallel supply chains across mining, refining, and downstream manufacturing to guarantee economic security across multiple critical materials. All right, Section 4, Vietnam, the sleeping giant. Let's dig into the potential versus the reality in Southeast Asia.
Taking us down to Southeast Asia, we need to impartially analyze Vietnam's ambitious yet really complicated role in this global chess match. The absolute best way to describe Vietnam's current situation is this simple phrase: the rocks versus the results. Vietnam sits on some of the world's most promising rare earth deposits. They have the geology, but historically, they simply haven't had the industrial output to back it up.
The disparity in the numbers is honestly staggering. Even after a recent downward revision, Vietnam officially holds 3.5 million tons in rare earth reserves. That's massive. Yet in 2022, their actual output was a minuscule 4,300 tons. That is the very definition of a sleeping giant. The potential is world-class, but the physical reality of getting the rocks out of the ground and actually processing them has been practically non-existent. So how do they fix that? Well, Vietnam has a multi-step strategy. Step 1 is reawakening the dormant Dong Pao mine, which is their largest deposit. Step 2 involves partnering with foreign capital and expertise, like their joint venture with Australia's Blackstone Minerals, to develop the necessary processing tech. And Step 3 is hitting a super ambitious target of 60,000 tons of output by 2030. Now, this isn't without its hurdles. The government is strictly regulating the sector to prevent illegal exports of raw ore, which even led to the recent high-profile arrest of the chairman of their state-backed partner, VTRE. It's a messy, complex cleanup effort as they try to modernize their domestic supply chain from the ground up. Next up, Section 5, China's tactical pause, a strategic de-escalation. With all these Western and allied billions flowing into alternative supply chains, we have to look at China's pragmatic countermove. And timing is literally everything here. In October 2025, China announced incredibly strict export directives for rare earths and critical minerals. But then, following diplomatic talks with the U.S. in late October, China's Ministry of Commerce suspended those specific directives just a month later, pausing enhanced U.S.-focused licensing requirements until November 27, 2026. They intentionally gave the global market a temporary breathing room, acting as a calculated diplomatic de-escalation. But, and this is a really critical but, we must neutrally clarify what is actually happening here. This is merely a tactical pause to recalibrate, not a total policy reversal. The ban on exports for U.S. military end use remains strictly enforced. Crucially, those highly coveted heavy rare earths we mentioned earlier, terbium and dysprosium, were permanently added to China's dual-use control list, and they are staying right there. The broader objective to consolidate and monitor their supply chain control architecture continues completely uninterrupted. They simply hit pause on the immediate escalation. Finally, Section 6, the global supply chain. Let's piece the whole board together. Let's synthesize all these global capital flows back to the physical reality of our mine-to-magnet metaphor. The crucial takeaway is this: de-risking the supply chain requires matching Western capital with viable, operational upstream assets. Pledging billions of dollars in financing and making these grand strategic pacts, that's really only half the battle. To actually break a monopoly, you need the physical reality of the mines. You need USA Rare Earth buying a fully operational Serra Verde in Brazil. You need Australian dollars physically extracting ore from the ground. Financial deals are great, but you can't build an EV motor out of a term sheet, right? You need the actual rocks. Which leaves us with one final provocative thought. As we watch billions pour into Brazil, these massive coordinated pacts in the Indo-Pacific, and the awakening of Vietnam's dormant mines, is this multi-billion-dollar global realignment actually enough to permanently break the China loop? Or is China's tactical pause just a brief moment before they leverage their dominant processing capabilities once again? The future of green tech, advanced defense manufacturing, and global security hangs squarely on the answer to that question. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I hope this helped you see the bigger picture. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.